wonderful to meet all of you and welcome to Earthfest 2025. I'm sure all of you have heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. And I'm really excited to talk about finding your voice. For me, it's really important for various reasons. But before I start, I want to warn you in advance. I like to be loud. I like to be very interactive. So if you've got any questions, please wave your hand, please ask, it's okay. And I have a wonderful interview that I'm going to be doing in a little bit. And I can't wait to hear what this person has to say. She really inspired me quite recently when I heard her. I thought, when I was asked to come and speak, and they said, it would be great for you to bring someone. I thought, you know what? The person that I know would be perfect for this is the person who just recently inspired me. Anyway, moving on from that. Before we start, like I said, I like to be interactive. So let's start, before I start talking about finding your voice, please just shake your hands. Relax your shoulders. Then just relax your neck. There is method to my madness, I promise you. So we'll do that again. Shake your hands. Relax your shoulders. And wind your head. Great. So I'll tell you a little bit about my bio and what I've done for quite a few years. I will not give my age away, but I've been a vocal coach and a vocal consultant for many years, working with people on their voices, whether it's on stage, on TV, in film, on radio, and believe it or not, even politicians and CEOs of companies. And for me, it's really important. And in case you're wondering, what does this actually mean to Earthfest 2025? Well, I actually wrote it down because I wanted to be very specific, so I didn't forget any notes. And that is, if we want to win this battle for the planet, it has to be a massive joint effort. Now, I truly believe that. And the way we do that is through communication, persuasion, and inspiration. I'm going to say that again. Communication, persuasion, and inspiration. Now, you see, there are many people, for instance, as I was coming here today in the taxi, I asked the driver, I said, what do you think about climate change at the moment? And his response was really interesting. He said, I don't know. He said, I hear lots of people talking about it, but it doesn't make sense to me. And I asked him, I said, have you got any children? He said, yes, 3. But all I hear is the negative side. But what does that mean? Is it the end? And it really made me realize, and I said to him, I said, no, not at all. I said to him where I was coming, and I said, listen, what I'm going to talk about is communication. Because when we have crisis anywhere in the world or in our personal lives, in my own life, I've learned that communication is the key. I've learned that time and time again with different people that I've worked with as well, the ones who've ended up freer in their mind and doing much better in their communication to others is because they've worked out their own communication to themselves, and then you can extend it out to others. Let me give you some other examples in my own life. After working for many years with pop singers, I decided to try and write a book that was my debut book called If You Can Speak, You Can Sing. Now, everyone was asking me, what do you mean by that? Because everyone can't sing. And I said, no, you've missed the point. If we speak, we're using different notes. And if we sing, we don't have to have the tone that Aretha Franklin has. But if you learn to do that, it gives you the courage to speak to others. Now, I catered that book specifically for teenagers. The theme was about people who were children who were bullied and how to handle things with each other, how to do their schoolwork. But what was interesting and I did not expect was I had feedback from teachers and from parents, from the adults. A lot of the examples in that book are teenagers, but they said for them it helped in their communication with people that they knew and with a teenage group of people. So they didn't stay with one community. I then I had an ebook online called Hack Your Voice. And again, I had the target of people in my mind, but I then started getting phone calls, one of them in particular from Cambridge University. And they said, can you come down and speak to our MBAs and our EMBAs? And I thought, oh my gosh, what do you want me to say to them? And they said, it's communication. You see, we are living, I don't have my phone here, but I was going to use that as an example. We have social media, we've got online, this digital era that we live in, and it's wonderful in so many ways. But the same way we are trying to fight our way, this battle in terms of climate change, communication is struggling the same way. And I'm a firm believer, communication is what brings change. We want climate change. We need to do that through communication. So those are perfect examples that I've given to you. The last example is the person I'm going to bring up today, and I'm not trying to talk to you. For me, like I said, I've been working in the business for years, and I was invited to the launch of this lady. The minute I walked into the launch of her book, when I say she touched my heart, you really did, Saskia. Because in her launch, when she spoke, she opened up her heart and she talked about the fact that she never thought she would write a book. She talked about the time, the hours she had to put in, and she has children, she has her family. She's a child therapist, but she never thought she would take that chance, but she did. And I bring it back in her communication to everyone there. It touched my heart again about the importance of communication. I want to bring that to each and every one of you in this room today. Here we are, having to be more aware of climate change, the climate crisis that we're in. But how can we make that change? I'm going to do some exercises with you a little later. And I want you to practice this so that when you're going out, you're not just talking to the community that you're in. You're taking that chance to speak to the people who, for instance, they don't want to hear about it, or they're too busy, they've got other things to deal with. But actually, our generation, our children's generation, the generation after that, we do have to be aware of how to communicate the change that we need globally. Many of you would have been in different courses and talks that's happening this week, and that's marvelous. But I really want you outside of this week to find ways to communicate. You're going to hear me say that lots. To communicate, to persuade, and to inspire. You see, the mission of Earth Fest 2025 is about inspiring change. And each and every one of you want that change. And this is the way to do it, communication. So I'd love to invite Saskia.
It's my loud voice anyway. I think it'll probably be fine. It'll probably be fine. And I can stand next to you easily. So I put that down there. And I'll just use my very loud voice. I was a teacher. I can speak for a very big one. Very nice to meet everyone. I'm very, very pleased to be here.
Honestly, when you spoke at the launch of your book, I wasn't kidding, it really touched my heart. And when I called her, I said to her, I want to interview you in front of these people live. She's a live example of someone who has made change. So what I'd like to ask you is, what was it that made you, because you worked as a child therapist, you've worked with a variety of people, but what was the fear that you had of making change, which was to do with the writing?
Yeah, and so I'm a therapist for children, and I've been a therapist for 6 years. I specifically specialise in working with children with anxiety, which has become a part of the job which has absolutely exploded in the last few years, particularly since COVID. And the main reason I would say is because living in anxious times makes people anxious. And anyone here, anyone coming to this particular fest will understand that we're living in difficult times. Climate change makes a lot of us anxious. There's a huge amount of information that says aware teenagers feel very anxious about climate change. And they can see that their grandparents, for example, maybe don't care at all. And they're sitting there thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do all the time? And we've seen this huge increase in anxiety in children and adults. And if you have an awareness of the climate crisis, if you are taking it seriously, you can't but live in anxiety. because you can see what's coming and it makes you feel fearful. So I was teaching, I've been teaching for a long time, and then I changed to become a therapist for children, and then I specialised in anxiety just after COVID, because it was so clear that everybody was anxious and children needed support. And then I've been lecturing, particularly in schools, for parents about how parents can help their children with anxiety. And I was in a school doing a lecture for parents, and a lady came up to me afterwards and she said, I'm an editor for headline books. Would you like to write a book about anxiety? And I honestly thought that she was insane. I thought, you're absolutely insane to think like, yeah, I can talk to a few parents in the school about anxiety, but you're coming to the wrong person. You definitely shouldn't ask me. I'm not the right person. I shouldn't do this. And the main reason is because I'm dyslexic. I'm a dyslexic adult, which people don't often talk about, but it's very hard to be a dyslexic adult. There are lots of things you have to do on a daily basis that are incredibly hard. And communication, as Sam says, CeCe says, is literally the biggest one. If you can communicate verbally, it certainly doesn't mean you can communicate written down. And that to me was the biggest fear, that I would have this situation where I had something I wanted to say, I was so sure what it was, but absolutely no one would understand it. And it meant that the pressure to make sure my ideas were very clear and I could communicate them to parents, and I could communicate them to the editor, and I could communicate them to whoever was coming to read the book, for them to be able to actually use the ideas that I'd learned to help children to then be able to do it. I felt very fearful there would be this big gap between what I wanted to say and the ability to say it in person. And that made me feel very, very scared, to the point where I was like, they've asked me to do this thing, but I just don't think I will. I don't think I will. I'm not that person. I never expected it. I wasn't academic at school. I found these things very, very difficult. Thank you. And I just thought, I won't do it. And I even said to my family, they've asked me to certainly pitch in for a book. I just don't think I'm the right person. I just shouldn't do it. And my mum, my sister, and my friends were like, just give it a go. Why aren't you doing that? Why don't you give yourself the chance to be brave and do something that you believe in? And I am a firm believer in doing things I care about and helping people more than anything else that I can think of to do. And I was very scared. And even when it came out only a few weeks ago, I was very, very scared.
But in so saying, again, this is why it's so inspiring. We're talking about someone who was so scared to do it.
That's so
Yet she ended up with press curious. They wanted to hear more. You had invitations every day.
Yeah.
And I bring it back to each and every one of you in this room. You are all speakers. We all are. It's not one person has been sort of rested on, you are the one. I honestly think we are all speakers, and we have the choice whether we choose to talk about what's really important in this day and age. Are we leaders or are we followers? My mother used to say that to me. She would say, if you're going to be a sweeper in the streets, be the best. She did. She honestly did. And I got the point, which is, it doesn't matter what your job is, but give it your best. And here we are in this day and age, this digital era where we've got climate change that needs to happen. But we don't wait for someone else to do it. Let's not make the criticism of that person didn't do this or that. You, in spite of being dyslexic, you made that conscious choice, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And I think that in terms of communication, the big thing that I was really trying to do with the book was invite people in a way that would mean I could help them. So I find that often we find people have opinions that oppose others, or they have an opinion that people don't want to hear. The trickiest part is not ending up in a very big confrontation. I didn't want to write a book that made parents angry, so they wouldn't help their children, so they wouldn't want to join in, or they wouldn't feel helped. I wanted to find a way to get people to feel like they could help themselves, feel empowered to make change, feel empowered to do something different. And I started by trying to find a place where we could meet. In the beginning of the book is where I sort of explain about how I ended up doing this. But I say, this is a book for everyone. You're on my team now. If you come in, you're on my team. And I think that that's a really important part of trying to move the needle for these issues that we believe in. If we come in bullish, angry, furious, why don't you get it? I want to tell you this. You're not doing it right. If I went to parents who are already worried about their children and said, look what you're doing. You're doing it all wrong. Look how badly you're doing. I don't think I make any progress. And that is one of the biggest issues when we're so passionate about things and we want other people to listen to us and we care so much that change will happen that we come in so furious because we're so upset about it that the other person can't join us. And I wanted to make sure that these parents could see we were all trying to go in the same direction. There's nobody, even people who aren't as passionate, who want the world to be a bad place, who want the world to be hot and awful and flooded. Nobody really wants that. But if we go in shouting at them, they're not going to think we want to change together. And that's what we want. We want to be using our communication. Oh, hello. We want to be using our communication skills to show people we're on the same team. And when I speak with parents about anxiety, we're all on the same team. We want their child to feel happier. We want their child to feel calmer. We want them to feel more in control, that they know what the next steps are going to be, that everyone can get through this, that there's more good stuff to come. And that's actually exactly the same with climate change. We're all on the same team. We want everyone to be happier and safer, and we want more good things to come. It's much, much easier to get on the same page if what you're saying is something sensible, kind, and inclusive. Absolutely. Even if you're angry about it, even if you're passionate about it. You know, sometimes I see parents who are, you know, it's not that often because most parents are actually very good parents, they just don't know it themselves. But sometimes I see not good parents. I wouldn't out anyone, I would never tell anyone I felt that way. But sometimes I really see parents who are actively making their children's lives harder, who are putting pressure on their children in a very extreme way to get into schools or to become a certain kind of person, or their child knows that if they were to come out, their parent would be very, very furious with them. You know, horrible feelings that are clearly not what we're looking for from parents. We're looking for inclusivity, the ability to be yourself, the ability to support kindly with what you're doing. And that's very, very similar. There'll be lots of people who, when you speak to them about climate change, will say things you think are abhorrent. You think, how can you be so dumb to this?
I mean,
be so
that's
blind to
what I
this?
mean, which is, it's great that you're saying that, because this is where we can practically, in our everyday lives, use it in our speech, in our communication to others. So like I said to you, I like to be very interactive. So I'm going to ask you to stand up for a minute. There is method to my madness, I promise you. So we're going to just shake your hands one more time, because I want you to actively figure out how you're going to communicate to others. Relax the shoulders and the neck. Now you can have a seat. Now I'm going to give you an exercise.
Ready.
So I want you to take your tongue. There is method to my madness, I promise you. Take your tongue for a minute, put it at the roof of your mouth, behind your teeth. I've worked this with, trust me, every pop star and CEOs, okay? So behind your teeth. Now, in that area, you will feel that it's what I would call hard and bony palate that we talk. Slide your tongue now, 3/4 of the way back. So you'll feel where it gets soft and jelly-like. Do you feel that? Put your hand up. If you don't, tell me. So everyone have. Okay, great. So you can relax now. Now, when we speak to people, this is a vocal technique that I've used with so many people in their communication to others. When we speak, whether it's on the hard palate or the soft palate, they're both good. But according to the message that you want to give across, the hard palate, the front of the mouth, this is where we have that place where the sound is much more precise. You want to persuade someone, you need to speak what we call in the music world forward placement, in the speech world forward placement. Now, if I speak on the back and speak to the head, now that's fine, I'm on the soft palate. But it's clouded with beautiful air, it's lovely, it's a different sound that I want to get across. I'm exaggerating, you see. So again, the front of the palate, an exercise that you can do, all of us, very relaxed. Whether we're walking around, we're washing the dishes, we're cleaning up, seeing after the children, whatever we're doing. Just a reminder of taking that tongue into the, oh, that's the hard palate, and then speak. Say, my name.
My
name.
Now, as you say it, I want you to imagine in your head that you've got the air coming out at the front of the face, not at the back, in the hard palate. My name.
My name.
Great. Now, the other thing is the consonants. We're pushing the m, n. My name is. Now, this is an exercise on my website. You can go, you'll find information. I've got new exercises. We're breaking out in September. You'll find out about that. But the point I'm trying to make is if you learn vocal exercises that are very technical but fun, it makes a huge difference in when we're communicating to others. Now, what drew me in terms of the persuasion, the inspiration, when I heard Saskia, when she made it really real in her life about this book, Help, when she heard it about, when she said about being dyslexic, and I wrote the book anyway, within my heart, I felt that inspiration. I thought, She really believes what she's saying and she's acted upon it. Now I bring it back to each and every one of you. You're here this week. You're listening. You're being inspired by lots of different talks that you're seeing, you're hearing. But how can you practically in your own life start to make that change? You don't have to be literally on a stage. You could be talking to the neighbor next door. You could be talking to a friend that you're meeting for dinner. And some of you, I believe, can be on a stage as well, if you chose to be, and give a voice. Find your voice. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think also we can communicate also with our actions, and we can do small things that mean a lot to us and show other people what kind of person we are. So, for example, we run the Mill Therapy Hub in Mill Hill, which is a practice for therapists and all different kinds of hypnotherapists, couples therapists, all different therapists, and there are about 30 therapists working every week. One thing that we did, which is very small, and it only cost a very small amount of money, was we built a little library outside the building, which means that anybody coming in and out can take a book and leave a book, and our community where we live has massively engaged with it. It's a very small thing, it's literally about this big, and it communicates openly about what we believe before people even come inside. So it's about, I think there's this thing about, it's the way you speak to people, it's the way you use your experience and what you've lived through that shows how much you care about something, but it's also the actions that you present to others. And I think none of them are forceful. They don't have to be forceful to make a big difference. You know, the little box of books tells people we love literacy, we love helping people, we love to share before they've even walked into the building. And I don't stand outside going, you share, you do it. Why are you not standing and giving me your books? I put it out there carefully, quietly. I messaged on my road group very quietly, didn't ask anything. I told them it was going to be there. And since then, the engagement in it has been, I mean, it's always completely full. Sometimes I come out and I go, oh, it's a bit empty. By the time I come back from picking up the children from school, it's full again. And that's, you know, and it's a very small thing, and it does help the world, and it does make me feel like I'm adding to the universe in a small way. It doesn't have to be that thing. I don't think you have to be starting a huge countrywide project to make a difference. You don't have to be shouting on the biggest stage. You don't have to have the most social media followers to make a difference. You can think, what do I believe in? What can I do myself? And how do I explain to people why it's important to me? And once you do that, you'll see people join in with you, exactly like when I said, I'm dyslexic, but I've written this book because I really care that parents should feel empowered to look after their children. And even though I was scared, I did it anyway. And then CeCe saw me and she thought, great news, I'll come and ask you to talk with me. It's because I did exactly what I said I would, which is I was exactly clear about what I believe. I said it as calmly and kindly as I could to other people. And I made it clear that nobody had to do anything. If they wanted to join me, they could. I wasn't forcing anyone. I wasn't making anybody do anything. I was just sharing something I was really passionate about.
Absolutely. And I bring it back. Earth Fest 2025. Remember what the mission is. Inspiring action. Exactly what Saskia's mentioned. For her, it was about action, and she did. What about you? It's about conversations. I bring it back. When we talk about communication, conversation starts with let's say, the next person that you see as you're walking outside on the street. When you get home, invite someone over for tea at home. We start with small things and we build it into bigger things. Increasing awareness, the same thing. We don't have to be on social media with all those numbers that some people have. No, let's start with what we've got. Let's start where we are, and from that. Thank you so much. Again, I want to bring it back to each and every one of you, because if you have any questions, that would be, I want you to ask. But the last thing I'm going to reiterate is vocal exercises. I'm not just saying it because I'm like, yes, that's, vocal exercises are so important. I honestly think it's so important. I'll tell you a personal story. 4 months after I had my daughter, I had a fully ruptured brain aneurysm. And the doctors explained to my family, if she wakes up, she won't be able to walk or talk. Now, they were correct. 2 weeks later, I woke up. I was plugged in. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything. And what was interesting is when I woke up from it, I could hear what the doctors were saying, but I could not respond. Now, when the speech therapists came in to help to teach me, and they were wonderful, But what was interesting, when they started doing the exercises, these were exercises that were not very dissimilar to what I taught many pop stars, movie stars. And that's when my brain started to tick. I thought, hang on a minute, these vocal exercises matters beyond the fame side. Absolutely. A, E, I, O, U. Consonants, like I said earlier, take your tongue, put it at the front of the mouth, hard palate, soft palate. Like we have such control in our lives that we don't realize it. And here we are wanting globally to make a change. We've got to start with our communication. These exercises, I promise you, these vocal exercises combined with that persuasion that Saskia was talking about, that inaction will give us what we want with Oathfest 2025. Finding your voice. Here I am giving you my story. Here's Saskia giving her story. But what is your story? I really want you to think of that. If you remember one thing that we've said, it's about communication. It's about inaction with what you do. Vocal exercises, like I said, and vocal exercises is not something you need to go necessarily pay for. These are things you can find online. These are things that you get inspired by listening to what other people have gone through, and you figure out how you, in your way, in your accent, in your way of speaking, how to communicate. So please find your voice. If you have any questions for either of us, please feel free to put your hand out. And afterwards, we will be sitting just outside with the books and we can sign some stuff. And it'll be great to get some photos with you if that's okay. So any questions? Why don't you come up, Saskia, in case?
Yes, we've got a question for Saskia. Thank you very much. What a remarkable story.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just curious about, on the topic of anxiety, the young Saskia who had dyslexia.
Yeah.
How did that sort of contribute to moments of anxiety in your own childhood?
I think luckily I wasn't necessarily an anxious child. I think I may be more of an anxious adult. I don't know. I'm not necessarily an anxious person overall, but I think that when you are not good at things that other people find easy, you will always feel anxious about it. Particularly if your parents wanted a child that was a certain kind of child, particularly if all your friends were really talented at something and you weren't, it will always stick with you. It will always sit on your chest and you'll think it shouldn't be me. They won't pick me for this because I'm not that person, or things like, for example, I wasn't an artistic child, I was not autistic, but now for my job, because I do a lot of art and play with children, I'm really good at drawing now because I draw the whole time. And that's because anything you practice at, you get better at. So I think, and also, for example, I had to read out loud my audiobook, which was the biggest fear I've ever had in my life. I had actual proper nightmares about it for months in advance. And I was sure they would say I wasn't a good enough reader to read it. And I practiced by reading my son, who's just in here with his scooter. I practiced reading to him chapter books every night, like lots of chapters, more than I would have done because I wanted to practice. And I said to him, and it was true, I said to myself, as he was quite invested in the process, I said, it's very possible that they won't let me do it. Even though we've been practicing, and even though I've really worked hard at it, they still might not let me do the audiobook because there are some things people aren't good at. Even though I've really tried my best, I still might not be allowed to do it because when I read it might be too stilted or too slow. They might not like the way I read, even though we practice. I said, it's exactly the same if they've asked me to do juggling for the book tour. I won't be able to juggle either. Even if I practice, I'm unlikely that I'll be able to juggle. If they don't say yes, that's okay because I've really put my best effort in. And I'm trying to liberate my children in the same way that I hope to liberate my younger self. That I practiced and I tried and I did everything as well as I could, and I know that I still can't be perfect and it still might not work out, and that's okay as well. And I think the thing is, I want to stand by my own actions. I want to have tried my best. I've learned these things that really help children get better with anxiety. If I just sat at my house thinking, I know some really good things that will help anxious children, and I didn't share them, I think that would be a terrible shame, even if it's scary for me. And I think that's exactly what we're saying. If you think you know something, if you think you can help people, if you think you can make change or do things yourself because you've got something special, it would be a big shame to keep it at your house. It would be a big shame just to think, well, I would be good at this, but I'll just keep it to myself. And we only all have a certain amount of time here on the planet. And I think it would be good if people feel brave enough. And I've had a year of feeling very scared. I'm not suggesting it was either. Felt very scared almost the entire time since they told me I was writing a book last year in April. I spent the whole year feeling really scared. Even now, I feel like I haven't fully relaxed. And it's been out for about a month, and I'm still like a bit nervous that people will suddenly say they don't like it, or that I've made a mistake. But even the publisher will call me and be like, we said we published a book, and actually in the shops we're taking them all back. We're taking them all back. They're actually terrible. We're taking them all back. And that isn't luckily what's happened. But I think it is scary. It's scary to do things you believe in. It's scary to be brave. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to hold on to it. You have to hold your fear and do what you believe in at the same time.
It's also learning how to cope with those moves, knowing that absolutely everyone gets nervous. Everyone. But some people have learned how to mask those moves, and you said it exactly right. You started at home and reading to your son, and you know this is how I bit by bit with this anxiety.
Can I just add a point? Sorry for cutting. I also think that a certain level of insecurity is very healthy, and actually it helps you to achieve your potential. I think most people who succeed at a very high level at things, at least in my experience, have quite a healthy level of insecurity about their own ability. But it's, in a sense, it's that insecurity that always drives you on to try and push yourself to the next level. So I think being insecure about things is very natural, very healthy, and actually in some ways quite beneficial in terms of enhancing performance.
And also, if you are doing something that's different to other people, when you stand out rather than fit in, you'll always feel nervous that you're doing it wrong. Because as a culture, as a people, as a survival mechanism, we all know that fitting in is easier than standing out. It's much safer. You feel like you're less likely to be eaten by a predator if you're standing away from the pack. A dinosaur might come in and eat you. If you're in the pack, there are more people that can be eaten before you. That's a bit safer. But I think if you believe in what you're doing, if you know that what you know in your heart is the right thing to do, and you've got something that would make the world nicer and better, it will be sad not to share that.
Absolutely. So that being said, for all of you, you can remember just shake those hands, relax those shoulders, and relax the neck. And remember, change starts from within. So have a think. What are you going to do personally? Because you will. Thank you very much for having me. So what we'll do is we can, if you have any other questions, please ask. We'll be sitting right outside, and Saskia will be doing some signing for her books, and let's talk some more.